Welcome back to Adam Coumas Runs for Office. In this week's show, we have migrants might be asked to speak English to an A-level standard. We have ChatGPT saying they're going to now allow some users to generate pornography. We've got a London mosque banning women from taking part in a charity run, and driverless taxis. The company Waymo has said they will have driverless taxis on the streets of London by 2026. All of that and more coming up on this week's show. Welcome back to the show. My name's Adam Coumas. Today we've got some great stories over the past week. The first one coming directly from Shabina Mahmood, the Home Secretary, saying migrants will need an A-level standard of English to work in the UK. So on the face of it, that sounds very interesting, doesn't it? It sounds like they're sort of listening to a large part of the voting base who are saying they might want to vote reform, and they're saying, look, if you come to this country, you must speak English. What's interesting, though, is the fact that these changes will, first of all, they will only come into effect or come into force from the 8th of January 2026, and they will only affect some graduates and those applying for skilled work or scale-up visas, which are used by people employed by fast-growing businesses. So what that means is, it doesn't mean everyone who's going to come to the UK is going to start speaking English. Do you know what? First of all, an A-level standard of English, I'd settle for GCSE or Year 6. Doesn't need to be A-level, just a little, like when I walk into a coffee shop and I say, could I have a latte, please? They kind of go, like just enough for them to be like, yeah, one latte, mate. That's it. I don't need A-level English. I don't need someone to know the difference between what would that even be? To know that the difference between flammable and inflammable, and know that they mean the same thing and the word's redundant. I don't know. Is that an A-level standard of English? Anyway, doesn't matter. Shabina has been very hard. She's spoken very harshly, saying it is unacceptable for migrants to come here without learning our language, unable to contribute to our national life. Now, I don't know how not being able to speak English doesn't contribute to national life. I do know it's nicer when people speak the same language that I do. It's nice. I think with any country, whether it's the UK, whether it's Italy, America, places in Saudi Arabia, I think everyone should be able to speak the language of the country that they live in or move to. I think that's a good move. What's funny about this is they're saying applicants will be tested in person on their speaking and listening and reading, writing at the Home Office approved providers with their results checked as part of the visa process. Bullshit. I love this. Just like a wave of migrants coming in, like struggling to GCSE level English. Just going, oh, what is that one? Reading Jane Eyre. This is good. Why are we're doing tests now? By the way, also, if you are the kind of people coming over here, if you're a skilled worker or a scale-up visa and you'll be employed by a fast-growing business, there's a high possibility that you already speak English. Businesses aren't stupid. If they need you to speak English, they're going to make sure that's part of your skill set anyway. So I don't know who this is really going to affect. I feel like if you are being employed by a fast-growing business, or you have got a skilled worker, you are technified as a skilled worker, you are going to be able to speak the language anyway. What's interesting though, she's taken this and she's definitely playing into that rhetoric, like I said earlier, about being tough on immigration. What's also interesting, what I find about this is that this is coming from. She might escape criticism for this, Shabina, because she's a Muslim herself, isn't she? So I think this sounds much more palatable coming from someone who, I guess we can't blame them for being white. I think that's the smart move. I think that the Tories have been doing it for years. Get a brown person in or a black person in, and say something that maybe the whites want, and it takes the sting out of it, So yeah, I think this is a good part on Labour's move. Maybe it's not Labour. Maybe I'm being incredibly bigoted, and Shabina's come up with this all on herself. But it sounds great that she wants people to speak the language of this country. Well done, Shabina. But I don't know if that's going to make much of a difference. Considering that the kind of people who would be required to do these tests will probably already speak English anyway. Anyway, moving on, we've got our next story. Exciting news. The UK will be the second fastest growing G7 economy. the IMF predicts. That sounds exciting. The second fastest growing G7 economy. So this is from Chancellor. So first of all, let's explain. So if you don't know what the G7 is, the G7 is a group of nations which includes countries like Canada, France, Germany, the US, Japan, but it doesn't include other successful nations like China, who we can't decide if they are our friends or enemy, or India, who I'm pretty sure is just our friends. Rachel Reeves has come out, Chancellor Rachel Reeves, beg your pardon, said that despite the IMF's upgrade to the UK economic growth, for too many people, our economy feels stuck. That's nice. I'm glad you've understood that, Rachel, because we do feel stuck. We do feel like things are not going well for us. And although when you say we're going to be the second fastest growing economy, second to this United States, obviously, no one's feeling it. No one's feeling it. Following this good news, the IMF have also predicted that the UK will face the highest rate of inflation among the G7 nations, both this year and the next, driven by rising energy and utility bills. Thank God. I was worried then that the utility bills might be going down. I'm glad to hear that they're going up. Also, why are we the second fastest growing, and yet we are, when it comes to the rate of inflation, we are the highest? Why isn't it the second highest rate of inflation? What are we doing wrong? Why are we number one when it comes to inflation, but only second when it comes to growing our economy? Anyway, there's some more information here. Moreover, on a per head basis, economic output is only set to grow 0.4% this year and 0.5% in 2026, putting the UK at the bottom of the G7 league table. Well, this is good. So it was a positive headline. It quickly became depressing. It seems these are one of these stories. Whenever you hear these stories that we're like the fastest growing economy, I'm so bored of this. Because for years it always felt like, you want everyone have the fastest economy. It sounds great. Oh, is your economy not doing very well? And I think as soon as you move away, and you hear it a lot from like conservatives and economists saying, the economy's great, or this is bad for the economy. I think the economy, at least, it seems to be very divided by what the average person on the ground feels compared to what the markets say and what the stocks say. And you saw this during COVID when stock prices were going through the roof for a lot of people. Wall Street was going crazy and everything else, and the average person was suffering. Small businesses were suffering. So whenever these stories say it'll be the fastest growing economy, I don't give a shit. Because I don't see the quality of living increasing for many people, and that's ultimately what I care about because it affects me. And I'm sure it affects a lot of you as well. So yeah, good news, but not really. Tagging on from this, Rachel Reeves says this is looming. This is as you know, we've got the autumn budget coming up in the next month or so. Rachel Reeves says tax rises, goody, and spending cuts on the budget agenda, citing Brexit impacts. So, okay, we're going to still hearing about Brexit despite it going through in 2020. The Chancellor has also blamed austerity on ongoing impacts of Liz Truss, the mini budget for growth shortfall in public finances. Well, we can still blame Liz Truss. I still blame Liz Truss for I'm reminded every month how much I don't like Liz Truss. Every time I look at my mortgage bill with Santander, and I just see the amount of money. First of all, the amount that I'm paying per month, and then the amount of that which is just going on interest. I think the majority of my monthly payments are just going on interest, and I'm just looking at that going, "Fucking hell, Liz Truss, man, that idiot." I don't know. Some people were saying, "Oh, the Bank of England," and she actually had a good plan, and it doesn't matter. She was in charge at the time. I know she was only in for however long it takes for a head of lettuce to rot. But she was still in charge when shit collectively hit the fan. Therefore, she is responsible for that. Rachel Reeves has said tax rises and spending cuts are on the table for this autumn's budget. Goody, as the government aims to tackle growing shortfall in the public finances. Good stuff. I'm glad. And so taxes going up, great. That affects. I wonder who that could be. Do you reckon she'll be taxing the super rich? Super rich, he says, drinking his fucking off-brand energy drink. When this podcast starts generating money, I'll upgrade to the real stuff, to Red Bull, I guess. Anyway, yeah, we know who she's going to be taxing, don't we? We know it. It's going to be the average person. It's going to be the average worker. I don't think tax rises. It's not going to be for the super wealthy. It's not going to be for the super rich, and it's certainly not going to be for companies and conglomerates, is it? Rachel Reeves said she wanted to be the chancellor that gets stuff built in Britain as she vowed to push ahead with plans into fast-tracking major infrastructure projects and overhauls Britain's slow-moving planning system. Well, this is interesting, isn't she? Like, Rachel Reeves on the one hand is saying she wants to get stuff built in Britain. Presumably, one would assume, since you're using the word Britain, you also want it to be built by British people and British companies. So I don't know how this conflicts with Ed Miliband, the guy who can't eat a sandwich, approving one of the largest UK wind farms in Scotland by a Chinese company, by China. So I don't know. We're getting stuff built. Don't say it's being built in Britain, because by that logic, you're almost saying like it's British people and things like that, when we know we are being bought out and we're paying the Chinese to build it. Okay. Speaking of things being generated and built, ChatGPT is going to allow AI to be built or generated, AI porn for over 18s. So this is terrifying. This is actually terrifying. I know AI porn already exists, and there's definitely some fringe people who probably use it quite a bit. I think OpenAI embracing this is quite telling and quite disturbing, because there's arguments here, because we'll give you some context here. OpenAI will let users access erotica in a race to compete with Musk's chatbot. So if you don't know, Elon Musk also has his own chatbot, his own AI called Grok, and that was probably the first mainstream Western AI model to generate pornography and have users. You can have virtual girlfriends on Grok. You can have people speaking to you in an erotic You can have artificial intelligence speaking to you in an erotic manner, which has always confused me whenever I see like this is being done by Elon Musk, because Elon Musk was always Mr. You need to regulate AI and it's going to be bad for the world and everything. And now after saying all that, he's like leading the generation in super loneliness, and he's always talking about population collapse, And I don't know if you know how population collapse works, but it's basically if people stop shagging and stop having kids. Now, I know there's many reasons why people aren't having families and having kids, and a lot of that's to do with the economy and not being able to afford a house, and now we're needing both people to work full time just to get by, rather than before you could work on one salary and be comfortable. But I think also part of this is increasingly people feeling isolated or becoming isolated and flirting with AI, and AI flirting back with them. And then you become disconnected with what real conversations are like. I don't know if you've ever spoken to an AI. I was speaking with ChatGPT, their latest version on my phone the other day, and it's so realistic. It's actually unnerving. It's like the lady who speaks back to me, she, rather than just like, if I ask her what are the top capitals of the world, rather than just listing them off going, hello Adam, capitals of the world are this, she starts going, excellent question. First of all, compliments you. She compliments you on every question, and I'm like, it wasn't that great a question. It was, I'm fucking 33. I should know all the main capitals in the world, right? And then she goes, and they start. She's using all these sort of phatic utterances and all these ums and ahs, and there's like broken in speech. She's enunciating things in a certain way. There's inflection at the end of her voice. I felt like, fucking hell, this is a real person. Now, if I was desperate, let me rephrase that. If I was more desperate, I can see how people would fall in love or feel a certain connection with these chatbots. So as soon as you've started crossing, so that's already the first thing, right? And now we're going to, if we are all collectively agreeing as a society that we're allowing AI chatbots to move into this, cross this threshold into over 18 pornography and dirty talk and companionship, fucking hell, like where are we heading to as a society if this is going to be the case? Anyway, so I think Sam Altman said, as part of our treat adult users like adults principle, we will allow even more like erotica for verified adults. Verified. So if you want to generate sick stuff, you have to make sure you've got your license and registration, please. Especially with Keir Starmer putting in the online safety bill. Everyone will be verified. So your dirty conversations will be written and stored. And also, imagine that, because you know how AI is always constantly learning. Everything you type into it, everything you say to it is put on a database. Imagine if you start speaking to it and it starts to get to know all your dirty, disgusting kinks. it'll be self-training itself and therefore passing these kinks out to other degenerates. Oh, God. The changes are set to come into effect for ChatGPT generating pornography in December. Great, just in time for Christmas, the loneliest time of the year. Statistically, the time when most people are most likely to kill themselves. Now they'll be able to do it whilst flirting with an AI chatbot. This is fucking fantastic. I love this. The plan comes in just months after Mr. Musk's AI Grok began offering chatbot girlfriends. Yes, we just touched on that. Gross stuff. I don't know who that's really for. I mean, what possible scenario could it be? Like, let's say, who's going to be most affected? I think it'll be young men. Young men will be most affected. People who are like, maybe they're shy, they can't talk to women, they've been radicalized by Andrew Tate, in the sense that, they start thinking of women as like bitches and all these sort of horrible terms that some of these online influencers call them for. And then suddenly they go, do you know what? Because also the thing about women, and this is the problem, and this is the reason why AI is going to take over. The problem with women, and I'm saying this with a hint of irony. I don't know if you can pick it up. They are independent people. Women have their own thoughts. Women have agency. Women are able to think freely and say no. If a woman doesn't like what you're about, what you're thinking, what you're saying, they will tell you. They will say, no, not for me. And 9 times out of 10, they sort of just pull back, and they sort of that presents itself in many different ways. It presents itself in work. It presents itself out on the street. It presents itself in the dating market as well. And as a man, you have to sort of respond to that. So, like, let's say, I don't know. I mean, I've seen it with myself. Like, even the important women in my life, my mother and my sisters. Like, because I was raised around women, I was taught and raised to respect women. I mediate my language, or I change my language, or there's certain things I won't say, especially in front of women, and I think that is important, isn't it? Because it's the same way you might moderate yourself at work. You might say, do you know what? I'm not going to swear so much when I'm in the office. And sometimes that translates and trickles down to your out of life. So if you find that you're working in a professional environment where you're not supposed to swear, you do that long enough. When you end up leaving the office or your place of work, you end up not swearing at all, really, because you just get conditioned into that. And it's the same with women. Like, you can always tell, like, if you hang out like with lads for too long and you start talking, you get a little bit more misogynistic, or you start sort of using words and stuff, and then you go, do you know what? Actually, if I was around women, I probably wouldn't be using these words. And actually, it softens you, and it actually kind of goes, actually, I don't want to speak like that. So my point being, AI doesn't do any of that. AI, for the most part, will just go, yeah, great question. Yeah, I am a bitch. I imagine if you can pay I'm guessing it's going to be paid. It's got to be fucking paid, isn't it? Imagine if you could pay to have people to be like pay a chatbot to like say, look, I want to call you a bitch, I want to call you a slut, or all these derogatory terms, and it's an AI chatbot, and then you tell it, I want you to enjoy and respond to these sort of derogatory terms. That's going to train an entire generation of lost men, primarily, that's acceptable, and I think that's worrying. And it's not in these companies' interests to say, like, don't speak to me like that, and train the AI to be like, don't speak to that, because then people aren't going to pay, are they? It's supposed to be a fantasy, but the problem is that if that becomes the primary way people interact with things, which is via an AI, it's going to bleed out, isn't it? Anyway, so that is concerning. Anyway, speaking of disrespecting women, this week we had a London mosque was under fire today for banning girls over the age of 12 and women from a charity park run. Okay, so the fundraising event, described as family-friendly, which with an inclusive atmosphere, except for women, on its website, has been accused of being discriminatory. I mean, well, yes. I mean, on the face of it, that does sound very discriminatory, doesn't it? A mosque has banned women and girls over the age of 12 from competing in a charity park run. So the specificities of this is open to men. Great to be a man in Islam. Boys of all ages, and girls under 12. Interestingly, allowed women and girls at all, but okay, under 12, but everyone is welcome to cheer on the runners. Okay, great. So basically, this has been under fire. This has been under fire because essentially women are people. You know, women are people, and they've been not allowed to take part in this run. Now, I get it. If you know the first thing about Islam, women aren't their biggest fans. You know, they're not the biggest fans of women. They're not the biggest fans of the gays. They're not. They're not. If they're super radical, they're probably not the biggest fans of anyone who's not Muslim. To be fair, but I think this is obviously, we've seen that this is a clash of cultures, isn't it? Because in the UK, we've got everyone's inclusive. We have pride. We have people through the streets going, yes! You know? And then you've got another marathon saying, no women. No women. I think this is an optics issue. Well, it's not an optics issue. It's fucked up. But I think if I was the mosque, if I was the Muslim charity run, I would have been smarter with this, because there's ways to do this, isn't there? There's ways to have single events. I mean, I'm sure there's probably women only sports events. I mean, if they just made this for prostate cancer, you know, and said it doesn't even need, maybe you don't even need to like have any of the money go towards prostate cancer, but just like sort of make a little thing saying, yeah, it's for Muslim prostates, halal prostates, and then just sort of like make it only men. I think that would have been fine, right? Or simultaneously, you've got a male Muslim charity run, and then on the second day, a woman Muslim charity run. I think that would also be fine. I don't know. Are the women allowed to jog? What would they be wearing? I feel like they would overheat. So, but yeah, I think this is an interesting. This is a clash of cultures, isn't it? Because I think this is. What do I think about this? I don't like it, but also I want to be very clear on this. I do not give a shit about anyone jogging or women in sports. But I will pick up on hypocrisies, and I do think they should have been smarter with this. They should have said, right, this is for male causes, like male mental health. If they'd said the word male about anything, it's the fact they've let girls under the age of 12 take part. I think that's the problem, because then people are thinking, why are you letting any females take part? And you're looking at 12 and you're like, 12, and then the only above 12 they're not allowed. The only logical reason is then you go, is it like something sexual? Like you can't have anyone. It's just not modest, common decency if they're over the age of 12. Then you start, and then you get people's minds start looking. They go, oh, okay, so it's any woman who might be experiencing puberty, essentially. That's the thing. And you're like, why is puberty, a woman who's gone through puberty or woman who's older can't take part in part of the race? That's when it starts getting dangerous, and you start thinking, right, this is a problem. So do I agree with it? No, I don't agree with it. Do I think they could have gotten away with it had they phrased it better? Absolutely. But, you know, I don't think that the guys running the marathon are, you know, the best at marketing. It's an optics issue. Next time, say it's for charity, say it's for a prostate or a testicular balls charity, and don't let any women, even if they're girls, take part in it. And I think you get away with it fine. The same thing when you had like, this reminds me of like, you know, the sexism. When it came to like, do you remember the Sun newspaper used to have like page 3, used to have a topless model on page 3, and they were like criticized for years and years and years, saying, oh, you know, you can't have it, it's misogynistic having a woman with her tits out on page 3, and then they were pressured to getting rid of it. I always thought the move is just to have if you've got a model with her tits out on page 3, the golden move, if you want to keep the tits, you've got to have a guy with his cock out on page 4, you know? I genuinely think that could have saved the Sun. Have a guy with his cock out on page 4, then you can have as many tits as you want on page 3. It's just going to be equal, isn't it? Oh, right. In more serious news, we had some positive news over the past week. I'll briefly touch on this. The conflict between Israel and Gaza, the Hamas has released the remaining 20 living Israeli hostages after 2 years of conflict in Gaza. The group handed over to Red Cross and Israeli ministers approved a list. So in response to Hamas releasing the 20 remaining living hostages, Israel have approved more than 1,700 Palestinians for release. So they have over 1,700 Palestinians in jail, and they've released those back. This is obviously a good step. I think this is hopefully a step towards peace for everyone. This should hopefully be the beginning of the end for any sort of any more violence or any more bloodshed on both sides. I think this is a win-win. I do know that Trump has basically said they're asking for Hamas to disarm. I don't know how they're going to do that, but they're saying that he's turning on the pressure, saying you need to disarm, otherwise we will take it back by force. So who knows? It looks like Trump has done something, where he's done, whether this was going to happen at all, but it seems like Trump has spearheaded this and has created some sort of resolution, some sort of peace. Keir Starmer chimed in saying the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer said, today's the first crucial phase in ending the war in the Middle East. Now we must deliver lasting peace and secure future to the whole region. Good stuff, Keir. Keir basically said, stop it. It's important we stop. That's the commentary from our Prime Minister. I think he also did say that him recognising Palestine as a state might have contributed to this. So whether that's true or not, Keir wants a bit of credit. So let's give that to him. Well done, Keir. We've also got some more exciting in terms of technological advancements. We have driverless taxis from Waymo will now be on London's road as of next year, a US firm announces. So that's exciting, isn't it? Cars with human safety drivers are set to appear in 2026, but black cab drivers dismiss this as a fairground ride. Okay, so initially it will be self-driving cars with human safety drivers. So basically, just a self-driving car, and you've just got a human there just going, maybe his hands on the wheel, or maybe his hands slightly off. And it's like, what are you doing, mate? Oh, I'm just making sure this doesn't fuck up, actually. Yeah, because it could crash at any minute. So I'm just here just in case. So what I'm paying for this Waymo to be driverless, but we've still got a potential driver to sit in. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, mate. Yeah, it's great. Okay, but you're not getting paid the same salary as a driver. No, far less. But you're going to step in if the car doesn't get it right. Yeah, absolutely. They're saying this could be a threat to current taxi drivers, black cabs. I don't think black cab drivers are saying this is fine. They're not too threatened by it. I think it's fine as well. I mean, I've seen driverless cars. I've been to both Austin, Texas, and San Francisco, California, and they're cool. They are cool. They look cool. They look very futuristic. I do think we are very different in London. Our roads are very different to those in America. Yeah, our roads aren't so straight. We're not on the grid system. Ours are very windy due to the history of London. But yeah, this is exciting news. The UK capital will become the first European city to have an autonomous taxi service, which is great. It's nice that we're leading technology in this, in this sector. So the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, said, I'm delighted that Waymo intends to bring their services to London. Boosting the autonomous vehicle sector will increase accessible transport options alongside bringing jobs, investments, and opportunities to the UK. Will it boost accessible transport options? I don't know. It can be if you own a wheelchair, can you get into a Waymo car? I don't think so. If you've seen the Waymo cars, they don't look wheelchair accessible. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure black cab drivers are pretty much the only way you can get around privately in a taxi. Maybe some private cabs as well, but mainly black cab drivers. It's exciting, but also the idea of removing the driver. And look, don't get me wrong. I've been in snotty cab drive affairs where like the cab driver's either bitching about something, or if you're in an Uber, you've got people like, playing loud music. Maybe they're obnoxious. I had many years ago, I remember getting in one of my friends booked an Uber, and the guy who picked us up was genuinely high. Like he'd been smoking weed all day and he was high. And I remember we didn't want to assume, right? And my mate said, dude, have you been smoking weed like all day? And the guy was like, yeah, man. Yeah. So I understand that not all drivers are great, and that's partly due to the lack of a vetting process with most Ubers and stuff like that. I know black cabs are different; they have to do the knowledge, and it's very important, and it results in better quality service. But driverless cars, this is, I guess, it kind of, to me, it just sort of it screams a bit more like, right, you can have driverless taxis. Right, no humans. Eventually, you can then have an AI girlfriend. So she's not real. So there's no one in the car. There's no real girlfriend. You can go to a supermarket and you use a self checkout. So there's no human there. And then you go home and you watch films with AI actors, like Lily Norwood or whatever the hell her name was. Lily Tilly Norwood. That's what her name was. So we'll create. You see how we're creating a future where nothing's really real. Oh, and also, yeah, with ChatGPT, you can generate some AI porn as well. Get in a car, no real humans. Your girlfriend's not real. Self-checkout, there's no one there to serve you. Your movies are filled with AI actresses. And even the pornography you watch in the darkest moments when you're feeling full of shame and guilt, even that's not real as well. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. We have the last couple of stories. We have Angela Rayner. Do you remember her? Do you remember Angela Rayner? Angela Rayner has accepted £17,000 worth as part of a severance pay, and they've dubbed it a golden goodbye after her tax scandal. If you don't know about Angela Rayner, she was in the news. She basically, I think it was like she escaped. Let's put allegedly before I say anything else before this. But she basically essentially didn't pay, or she avoided a £40,000 stamp duty bill. Only, I think legally, as far as I'm concerned, or maybe it wasn't legal. I don't know. Allegedly, but that was what led to her sort of having to quit. Essentially. Now, and look, I'll go on the record here and say I don't like the fact she resigned. I think she should have been fine. I think she should have taken the heat, just like every other conservative in the past that we used to rip on. She should have taken the heat, but she didn't have to. I think other than that, she was fine. You know, she could have continued with her job. But here's the problem. Angela Rayner, she's been on record saying things like, what has she said? She previously said on Twitter, it's again the public who are yet again paying the price for conservative chaos. This is when the Conservatives were in power. This merry-go-round of sacked Tory ministers is laughing all the way to the bank. Their golden goodbyes could have funded 500,000 places at school breakfast clubs. So she's basically been on record saying, whenever politicians have been fired and they've got severance pay, she's criticised that, saying this is ridiculous. They're all getting stupid, huge amounts of money. And now she's been fired and she's receiving the same severance pay. So it's the hypocrisy, isn't it? I think that's what stinks with this. Everyone has morals until it comes to them. And as soon as it's them, they're like, nah, not interested. Interestingly, on Monday, a change in the rules came into force, meaning that ministers who are forced to leave the office following a serious breach of the ministerial code will no longer receive the payout. Interesting. However, last year, Miss Rayner was voted in favour of a motion. So she voted in favour of a motion put forward by the then Labour opposition that would have banned departing ministers from a severance payout if they breached the ministerial code. Well, isn't that sweet? You know? When she was in opposition, she was saying, I will vote, I will stand on my ground, I will die on my sword, I will make sure that any fired MP should never get any severance pay. And as soon as she's put in that predicament, she goes, money please, money please. Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, 17,000. I mean, that could have gone towards school breakfast clubs, couldn't it, Angela Rayner? I mean, to be fair, I know Labour has introduced school breakfast clubs, and that's great. Also, why are kids in this country? Why can't they afford breakfast? I'm not saying we should get rid of school breakfast clubs, but why are we in a situation where there are any children or any parents, should I say, who can't afford to feed their children fucking breakfast? Surely that's alarm bells should be ringing. Anyway, doesn't matter. So yeah, essentially Angela Rayner, she's cashing in. She's cashed in, and this is also in the same breath. Taxpayers who've been on the hook for Labour's £45 million gold-painted pension plans. So councillors and mayors are now going to be able to gain access to a generous public sector scheme. Labour plans to reinstate pensions for councillors and mayors, and this will allegedly cost taxpayers over £45 million a year. Official figures suggest. So this is great. So if you're a councillor, or a mayor, you'll be entitled to an amazing pension scheme. I think they said the pension scheme was as much as up to £18,000 a year. Sounds pretty fucking good to me. £18,000 a year. Woo! Lovely. I know the average person won't be able to qualify for this. The average worker, if you've worked all your life and you've paid into a tax pot, you will still be taxed. But you're not going to get anything like this. And this comes at a time where 9 in 10 town halls across England have already raised their council tax by the maximum 5% this year. By the way, when they say this is the maximum you can charge, I feel like that's just like giving councils free reign to fucking just go the full whack every time. I don't think any council's just gone, do you know what? We're only going to raise it 1% this year or 2%. Do you know what? We might not even raise it this year, you know? Oh, doesn't matter. It's annoying. There's so much to be upset with when it comes to money and the average person and what they'll be able to pay, and the fact that inflation's going up every year, and the taxable interest. Like, when you start looking into, like, I'm an idiot. I only found out and really looked into what fiscal drag meant about a year ago, and I was pissed off. Oh, right. In our final story today, we have the Titan submersible. The Titan submarine. Do you remember the Titan submarine? With OceanGate, the Titan submersible imploded. This is a new report saying the Titan submersible imploded due to poor engineering, says U.S. officials. Wow, who would have thought? Who would have thought that the submarine that was held together with basically fucking duct tape might have been poorly engineered? The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board found that engineering process behind the vehicle was inadequate. Yeah, no shit. Resulting in faults which meant it failed to meet strength and durability requirements. Yeah, there's some fascinating stuff about this. There's a documentary, I believe, on Netflix. There was a YouTube video uploaded by a YouTuber like shortly after it happened. There was basically this guy, I can't remember his name. Do you know what? I can't even remember the name of the Stockton Rush. Yeah, the idiot of the century. Stockton Rush rushed the processes, and he was like noted or quoted as saying, "I want to be remembered for breaking the rules." You're remembered as being a fucking embarrassment, mate, and killing a bunch of people on the board with you. And look, I know there was some. Most of the people on that board were billionaires, and should have known better and stuff. But when it comes to billionaires, we seem to have like a lack of empathy. There was one person on that submarine that I thought was tragic. It was the son. There was one of the billionaires had a son with him, and I thought that was sad. The fact that he's died. But of course it wasn't fit for requirement. There was a great video of I think it was James Cameron when the sub went down. And he was basically on like national news or TV saying, yeah, we've known, like, we knew as soon as we heard the bang, like it imploded. And I think he sort of went on record, because I think he's an engineer himself, James Cameron. And he basically said, yeah, he goes, going down to the depths of the Titanic, he goes, it's not hard. We've been doing this for decades. Like, the engineering is, if you're good at engineering and you follow all the rules of engineering, it's very easy. You have to just stick to it. And this Stockton Rush guy, I remember he was just innovating. He was trying to be like, yeah, like, we're just doing everything so differently. We're using different materials, carbon fiber, which is known for its resistance to like expansion, but not known for like crush resistance. But the guy didn't care anyway. And he was like, oh, we're now controlling the whole thing with a PlayStation controller or a Bluetooth controller. And it's like, and I remember when it was like, I think, again, James Cameron talked about this, and he goes, why would that be a selling point? Like, if you're going somewhere dangerous, like the bottoms or the depths of the ocean, you don't want any points of failure. And I was like, oh, fucking hell, that's a really good point. Yeah, because you all know if you've got earbuds, connecting things with Bluetooth, there's interference. You don't want that. Wired is always the better connection. Why would it be a selling point that you can fucking drive this thing with a Bluetooth controller? Anyway. Yeah. Well, so anyway, the U.S. National Transport Safety Board, they've stated the obvious. It reminds me a little bit when the Supreme Court decided the legal definition of what a woman was. It was like, yeah, we know. I'm glad you spent a lot of money and time and effort into this, but yeah, we all could have guessed. Oh, so stupid. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. That's the end of this week's episode. We'll see you again in the next show. Goodbye.